I want to start by saying that I am a rational person. I'm a 32-year-old software engineer. I live alone in a 2-story house in Columbus, Ohio that I bought 4 years ago. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in the supernatural. When something strange happens, my first instinct is always to find the logical explanation. So when things started going wrong in my house last spring, I spent 3 weeks explaining everything away. The sounds at night, settling foundation. The food that seemed to disappear faster than it should, I was stress eating and not noticing. The feeling of being watched every time I walked down my own hallway, anxiety, working too many hours, not sleeping enough. It took a small red light in the dark to finally make me understand. Someone had been living in my attic for at least 6 weeks, possibly longer. I never heard him leave. It started in February. Small things at first, things that individually meant nothing, but together painted a picture I refused to see. The first thing I noticed was the smell, a faint, human smell in my upstairs hallway. Not strong, not constant, but there sometimes in the morning when I came out of my bedroom. I assumed it was my own laundry. I started leaving my hamper in the closet. The smell didn't go away. Then food started disappearing. Not dramatically, not entire meals gone overnight. Small things, half a loaf of bread over a week that should have lasted longer. A jar of peanut butter that seemed to empty faster than I used it. Cans from the back of my pantry that I didn't remember opening. I started keeping a loose mental inventory, told myself I was being paranoid. Then the sounds started. Soft, irregular sounds from above my bedroom ceiling at night. Not constant, maybe once or twice a week, always between 2 and 4 a.m. Movement, the soft compression of old wood under weight. I told myself it was squirrels. I made a note to call an exterminator. I didn't call the exterminator. The night everything changed was a Tuesday in late March. I'd gotten up at 3 a.m. to use the bathroom. On my way back to bed, half asleep, I glanced up at the ceiling of my hallway where the attic access panel was. There was a thin line of red light coming from the edge of the panel. I stopped completely. I stood in my dark hallway in my socks, and I stared at that line of red light for a long time. It was dim, the kind of light a phone screen gives off when the brightness is turned all the way down. Reddish, steady, not flickering. Someone was up there with a phone. I did not go up into the attic. I want to be clear about that. I am not the person in the horror movie who goes toward the danger. I went back to my bedroom, locked the door, pushed my dresser in front of it, and called 911. The police came. 4 officers. They went up into my attic with flashlights and came down 10 minutes later with expressions I will never forget. He was gone. Sometime between when I saw the light and when the police went up, he had left through a small ventilation access on the side of the house. But what he left behind told the whole story. A sleeping bag, rolled and positioned on a piece of cardboard between 2 support beams directly above my bedroom. A collection of food, canned goods, bread, crackers, things I recognized from my own pantry. A phone charger plugged into a junction box. A small battery-powered red light still on when the officers found it. And a notebook. The officer who showed me the notebook didn't let me read it, but he held it open to show me one thing. Pages of handwritten notes, observations, a daily log written in small, neat handwriting, documenting my routine, what time I woke up, what time I left for work, what time I came home, what rooms I spent time in, what time I went to bed. 6 weeks of entries. He had been up there since early January, watching through small gaps in the floorboards, learning my schedule, living 12 inches above my head while I slept. They found him 2 days later at a shelter across town. He had no prior relationship with me. No explanation was ever given for why he chose my house. I sold the house 4 months later. I couldn't sleep there after what happened. Every sound in the night, every creak of the floor above me sent me sitting straight up in bed with my heart pounding. The thing that stays with me isn't the fear I felt that night, it's the fear I feel when I think about the 6 weeks before. Every morning I woke up and went about my day while someone lay on a sleeping bag 12 inches above me listening to me breathe. Every night I turned off my light and closed my eyes while he watched through the floorboards. The red light was on for hours before I happened to get up and see it. How many other nights had it been on?
My wife and I had been planning the trip for months. A week in a remote rental cabin in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. No neighbors, no cell service, no distractions. Just the two of us, the forest, and a week to disconnect from everything. We'd been working insane hours all year, and we needed it badly. The cabin looked perfect in the photos. 2 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, a wood-burning fireplace, surrounded by trees on all sides. The reviews were glowing. The rental agency had a 5-star rating. What the reviews didn't mention was what lived inside the walls. I want to be careful about how I describe what we experienced, because I know how it's going to sound. I am not someone who exaggerates. My wife is a physician. We are both educated, skeptical, practical people. We left that cabin on day 3 of a 7-day booking, and we have never gone back to that area of Tennessee. We arrived on a Sunday afternoon. The cabin was exactly as advertised, beautiful, isolated, peaceful. We unpacked, opened a bottle of wine, watched the sun go down from the porch. It was perfect. The first sound came at 1 a.m. I was almost asleep when I heard it. Inside the wall behind our headboard, a soft, irregular scratching. Not constant. It would go for 10 or 15 seconds and then stop, then start again from a different position, slightly higher or slightly lower on the wall. I told my wife it was mice or squirrels. Old cabin in the woods, completely normal. She agreed. We put in earplugs and went to sleep. The second night, the sound was louder. Not dramatically louder, but enough that my wife heard it without me pointing it out, and it had changed character. It wasn't just scratching anymore. There was a tapping element now, rhythmic, almost deliberate, like something testing the wall, pressing against it from inside and listening for a response. My wife said, "That doesn't sound like an animal." I told her all animals sound strange inside walls at night. I didn't believe it. The third night, I set my phone to record audio and placed it on the nightstand before we went to sleep. At 2:17 a.m., I woke up. The sound had changed again. It wasn't in the wall behind the bed anymore. It was moving. I could track it, starting behind the headboard, moving laterally along the wall toward the corner, disappearing for a moment, then reappearing in the wall of the adjacent bathroom, then back, then along the ceiling above us. Something was moving through the entire wall cavity of the cabin, systematically, like it was mapping the space. My wife was sitting up in bed, gripping my arm hard enough to bruise. Then it stopped. Complete silence. And then, from directly above the bed, from inside the ceiling, something knocked 3 times. Slow, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. My wife was out of bed before the third knock finished. I was right behind her. We grabbed our bags, our keys, our phones, and we left that cabin at 2:30 in the morning and drove 4 hours to the nearest hotel without stopping. I didn't listen to the audio recording until we were in the hotel room. For the first hour and 40 minutes, it was exactly what you'd expect. Quiet ambient sound, my wife and I breathing, distant forest sounds through the window. Then the scratching started, clear on the recording, unmistakably inside the wall. But there was something else on the recording that I hadn't heard while I was awake. Under the scratching, very low, Barely above the noise floor of the recording, there was a sound that I can still not identify, low and rhythmic, almost like breathing but too slow, too deliberate, like whatever was in the walls was not just moving, but producing sound intentionally. At the 1:58 mark, right before the 3 knocks, there is a 3-second gap of complete silence. And in that silence, barely audible, something that sounds unmistakably like a word, one syllable. I've listened to it hundreds of times. I've had 2 audio engineers analyze it. Neither of them could tell me what it was, but both of them agreed it was not an animal. I've never shared that recording publicly. I don't think I ever will. The rental agency refunded us without asking questions when we explained we'd left early. They didn't seem surprised. When I pushed and asked if other guests had reported anything, the woman on the phone was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "We've had the cabin inspected twice. They never find anything." I asked what she meant by twice. How many complaints had there been? She said she couldn't share that information and ended the call. I found the cabin's listing 6 months later. It was still available to rent. The reviews still glowed. Nobody mentioned the sounds. I left a review. It was removed within 48 hours.
There's a moment in almost every horror story where someone is warned. A local, a stranger, someone who knows something about the place that the outsider doesn't. And the outsider, confident and rational and in a hurry, ignores the warning and drives straight into the thing they were warned about. I used to roll my eyes at those stories. I used to think nobody was actually that foolish in real life. Then I became that person. This happened in October of 2021. I was driving from Nashville, Tennessee to visit my parents in rural Georgia, about a 6-hour drive that I'd done a dozen times. I'd left late, hit traffic outside Nashville, and by the time I reached the Alabama border, it was past midnight and I was low on gas. I pulled off the interstate onto a state road that my GPS said had a gas station 4 miles ahead. Simple stop, 10 minutes, back on the road. It took 4 hours to get back on the road. The gas station was exactly where the GPS said it would be. Small, old, one of those standalone stations you only find on rural roads in the deep south. One pump under a flickering fluorescent light, a small booth with a single attendant visible inside. I pulled in and started pumping gas. The attendant came out almost immediately, an older man, 60s maybe, wearing a jacket despite the mild night. He stood near the booth and watched me pump. I nodded at him. He didn't nod back. He just watched. When I replaced the nozzle, he walked over, not quickly, deliberately. He stopped about 6 feet from me and looked at my car, at the Tennessee plates, and then at me. He said, "Where are you headed tonight?" I told him Georgia, through the state road, back to the interstate on the south side. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Take the interstate all the way. Don't use the state road tonight." I asked why. He looked down the road, into the darkness where my GPS was directing me, for a long moment. "Just don't use that road at night, especially not tonight." I thanked him and got in my car. I told myself he was a local eccentric, road superstition, small town folklore. I was tired and behind schedule, and the state road cut 40 minutes off my route. I turned onto the state road. For the first 10 minutes, everything was normal. 2-lane road, dense forest on both sides, no other traffic. My headlights cut ahead into the darkness, and the road curved gently through the trees. Then my GPS lost signal. Complete loss. No bars, no map, just a spinning loading icon. I wasn't concerned. Rural Alabama, middle of the night, spotty signal was expected. I kept driving. At the 15-minute mark, I passed something on the side of the road that made me slow down. A car, older model, pulled completely off the road into the grass, no lights on, no hazards, just sitting there in the dark, alone, no sign of the driver. I drove past it. 2 minutes later, there was another one. Different car, same situation, pulled off the road, dark, empty. Then a third. 5 cars total, spread over about 3 miles of road, all pulled off, all dark, all empty. I don't know why I didn't turn around. I've asked myself that question hundreds of times since. The only answer I have is that turning around felt worse than going forward, like whatever reason those cars were there might be behind me too. I came around a long curve in the road and hit my brakes. Something was standing in the road, in the center, directly in my headlights, about 200 feet ahead. A figure, human-shaped or close to it, standing completely still, not moving away from my lights, not reacting to my car at all, just standing there in the middle of the night, in the center of the road. I put the car in reverse and I backed up slowly until the curve in the road took the figure out of my sight line. Then I turned around in the narrow road, a 17-point turn that felt like it took an hour, and drove back the way I came. I passed the empty cars again, going the other direction. I didn't look at them. I came back out onto the main road. The gas station was still lit. The old man was still in the booth. When I drove past, he was standing at the window watching the road. When my headlights swept across him, I could see his expression clearly. He didn't look surprised to see me come back. He looked relieved. I took the interstate the rest of the way. I arrived at my parents' house at 5 a.m. and told them I'd hit bad traffic. I didn't tell them what happened for almost a year. When I finally looked up that state road online, I found one thing, a local news article from 2019 about a cluster of missing persons cases in that county over a 5-year period. 7 people, all traveling through at night, all last seen in the vicinity of that road. None of them were ever found. The article quoted a local sheriff's deputy who said the cases were unrelated and that the area was safe. He was not quoted by name. I tried to find the gas station on Google Maps to call and ask the attendant what he knew. The station doesn't appear on any map. I've driven that route twice since in daylight. The station isn't there. It's just an empty lot with an old concrete pad where a pump used to be. I don't know what that means. I don't want to know. When a local tells you not to use a road at night, listen to them.